So in 2016 September, I had to drop out and leave school when I had some very difficult personal challenges there that I could not escape. I couldn't even submit an assignment that was joined. There was a place where I was staying. I couldn't afford a rent for 1.5. 19, when I said to my family and my brothers and sisters, guys, I'm going back there and I'm going to get this thing now. I'm Bonginkhosi Kalipa. I grew up in the rural areas in Eastern Cape, in the area that was formerly known as Transkei, under a town called Ngobo. So I did all my schooling here up the way to matric. So I left Eastern Cape for the first time for Johannesburg that time when I was going to university. So from my high school matric, I went to University of Johannesburg to study Bachelor of Accounting in 2014. And at that time, it was a 3-year degree that I was going to study there, and then 4 years of, the 4th year CTA. So when I got to varsity, then I met some challenges, personal challenges there, to a point whereby I ended up taking 6 years for that 3-year degree. And that 6 years was not just 6 years, that is just consecutive years. Then I needed to have years where then I was not even studying. So to just give a glimpse on that, I was going to complete the degree in 2016, actually, yes, 2016. So in 2016 September, I had to drop out and leave school when I had some very difficult personal challenges there that I could not escape. I couldn't even submit an assignment that was due. I remember it was for tax. And I had to leave school and come back to Eastern Cape and regroup myself here. So that's how that journey went. There was a lot going on, but when it got to that point when I was doing my 3rd year, that's when I started to have a cut off there and had to pull myself away from school. And then 2017 and 2018, I tried to go back. There were financial challenges that were there, and also the personal challenges that I had was still around. Then I would try to look after myself, and then also wanting to go back to varsity, but I couldn't manage so easy at that time. So 2016, 2017, and 2018 were lost, if I use that language. So it was a time where I had to look after myself as a person, to say, if I continue with this process, I'm just going to waste money and my time. So I'd rather go and recover. When I've recovered, then I will come back and complete this. So that's what I did then when I went back in 2019 and fully focused on getting my degree. I passed the degree in 2019. So that was the first time part of my degree. And then I went on to pursue CTA after that. There was a place where I was staying. I couldn't afford a rent for 1.5. And the landlord would come and there would be conflict there and we would talk. I think I stayed in that place for 5 months and I finally had to move out. I could not pay that money at all. I couldn't raise it because I was working at PEP at the time. My job was only covering transport money to go to work and then buy a few groceries so that I can eat. So that was one of the struggles that were there. But then in 2019, when I said to my family and my brothers and sisters, guys, I'm going back there and I'm going to get this thing now. Some of the personal problems I had, I'm putting them away. I'm going to make a plan to pass there. So the surviving then for that year was the fees for the school. I said, I'm not going to worry about that. UJ is not going to chase me away. So that is parked. I need money for rent and food, groceries. And that's what I did. So I called every family member that I could call and said, please support me. I need, I think where I was staying, there was rent for 2.5. And then they would have to contribute more for groceries. I'll tell you a very strange thing, that even my mother, who was here in Eastern Cape, she's still here, she had to take 600 Rand on a monthly basis on the old age money and send it to me, because there was no one person who could just afford to support me at that point. So that's how I survived that whole year. And it was the year that I was actually going to pass, because I was very clear now on my goal that these people are supporting me for the last time, then I'm getting this degree. I'm not going to play here. So that was February 2020 when I went to the bridging course. And then I passed the bridging course in June that year, and started with CTA at the Institute of Accounting Science. I studied, didn't go so well at the beginning. There were challenges with the bursary, because at that point, I did have a bursary from Auditor General. Then Auditor General my bursary had been suspended because of these challenges of taking so long, and then in terms of the policy of the bursary scheme. So their funding was waiting for me to get to CTA. Now I was finally in CTA, but then they had challenges. It took, I think, at least 3 months before they processed funds to support me in CTA. I struggled initially. Test didn't go so well. And then I picked up on the second semester there at CTA. I got a supplementary. That was June in 2021 now, when I'm getting a supplementary to write for all 4 subjects. Then my personal challenges, specifically financially, I couldn't be in Joburg and have a place to rent. I then had to move back to Eastern Cape and be here. I wrote that the supplementary exam here. I'll tell you just a little challenge that I had. I even had to put my router by the window. It would be heating up, and because they were invigilating over using Teams. And there was just too much, the network was not working well. So those were some of the challenges that I had when I was writing. But I wrote, it didn't go well. Like, I had some challenges that I had. I couldn't have money to do things that I needed to do. But I was here, I wrote, and it didn't go well, that exam, because I couldn't study well preparing for it. Then I went on again to a 6 months extension at IS. I wrote in November that year. Then it didn't go well as well there. 2022, I started training at AG, and then I also registered for a studied and working. That didn't go so well because I was learning to juggle the two at the same time. And then we got to November, the results came out. I got a supplementary there for all 4 subjects. We went to write in January. I failed that supplementary again there. And then we were going to 2023. And then I got another 6 months at that time, I knew where the challenge was coming from. I knew that I only need 6 months to pass. So they gave me the 6 months, and I prepared very well for that 6 months. I passed in June 2023. That's when I got the CTA. I've always been a person who believes in the spirit of Ubuntu. So in Xhosa, we say umntu ngumntu ngabantu. So when I grew up back in the rural areas, I always had it's like I was always observant. So I understood that a community is what is alive. No one is alive alone. I know that every day, and I see it. We try to say, I'm my own person. I can live alone. I can do everything by myself. But I learned it very earlier on that every time when I try to do things by myself, and to say, I don't want anyone to know what I'm doing, I'm going to make it, it doesn't work. It never works. So I learned that the things that I know, I learned it because there was someone who put their time on knowing it, and then they transferred the skill to me. So I had started doing a little bit of tutoring in high school. I would share the knowledge I had in accounting and maths with the learners in high school. And it was more like teaching as well, because I was very passionate about it. Even when I would come back for holidays, I would go to that high school and teach the matriculants there. So I realized very earlier on that we need to share what we have. So if the maths teacher transferred the skill to me, and now I know how to solve x squared minus 6 is equal to what, then I needed to transfer that to someone else. So it was always to me about the game of transferring the skills, because tomorrow I'm going to be dead, and someone else needs to be able to do the job. So it started from that perspective. And then when it comes to the CTA and varsity, I realized that my struggle was not because the modules, accounting, auditing, tax, financial management was difficult as yes, they are difficult from the sense that you actually need to sit down and spend time on them and work on them. It's work. It's not something that's going to come to you sleeping. But I realized that what I was struggling with was not because of that. It was not because maybe I'm dumb, I don't know something. It was some of the challenges that we experienced that are outside to say, when you come from the class, if the class you were in classes for 5 hours, what do you do after that? Then you'll find that some of us who had financial challenges, you don't just go to class. I mean, you don't just go to the library. You need to go and think, what am I going to eat? Look for that. Now, your mind is not thinking about your goal now because you have a single goal that you're supposed to achieve. But now you have other things that you need to think about. You need to maybe to even go to work on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So I then realized that the struggle was more not because people are not smart, then they needed a certain way of helping them through this work, of showing them that you can do this work with less hours as long as you are doing it right. So when I got to CTA, I then realized that even in CTA, these supplementary opportunities I was getting, I didn't fail them because these things were just difficult for me. Where was the time for me to study, or where was the person who would really sit down with me and say, look, this is how you do group accounting and this is the reason you are doing it. There is limited time for the university that you are in. So I realized that, and then I was like, okay, let me share these approaches that I learned for myself while I was looking for a way of passing this thing while I'm working. I have a theory or some statement that I like to use about CTA. I say we are crazy enough to fail CTA when we are full-time students and believe that we are going to pass it when we are part-time, and we actually do pass it part-time. So then I realized that people need a lot of support, like when it comes to the technical and how they study. So I started sharing these lessons when I was doing CTA myself in 2021 specifically. I had a group that I was starting with, and we would choose papers and answer them and break down the principles from a question perspective. So I started there, and then I knew that once I'm done with this CTA, I kept looking at problems and saw people not making it in CTA, and I didn't like that. It just got to my height. I was like, I can't believe this. Like this thing is not really difficult. That's one statement that I know a lot of people would be like, no, it's difficult. I don't believe that. It took me about 3 years to complete it, but the difficult was not the technical. It was the things that are happening around you as you are studying. So if you go to sit down for 3 hours, what are you doing there? So when I tutor, then I focus on those things to share with the student to say, this is how you do this thing. So I look at the how. I let the person explain to me their process and then bring them up to speed to say, no, no, no. I see you are doing this, but what is your goal? So we need to first establish the goal to say, okay, you want to get 50% on each test. So what are you doing on a daily basis? We establish those things. So my passion was about getting to the nitty-gritty of the daily life of the CTA candidate. That's what I do with my students. So my passion was just about that, to say, I know that you don't fail because you are not smart. That is something that doesn't exist. Everybody who is not disabled, who is well, they can do it. But the university has limited time to support you on a more personal level to say, okay, you are struggling because of 1, 2, 3. Maybe you struggle in the exam room. I'll give you a personal story when it comes to this. There was a time that I fell asleep writing a second paper on an exam at IIS. So then when you are tutoring a student, that's what I do. I also try to establish and see, do you even get enough time to prepare for the test? Do you sleep? Because now people pull those all-night studies saying, I'm late. You study 2 weeks before writing, you are going to fail that test. Those are things that I know firsthand. You need to find alone time. Sit and think. Why are you doing what you're doing? Write it down. Write it down. What are you doing and why are you doing it? I have a file that I have put on um, a life about me, my future life. I have written it down. What is it that I'm doing in this life? So when I wake up every day, when I start to realize that, oh, maybe it looks like things are not working out, I go to that file and read it. What is it that I said I'm doing in my life? So you've got to have the overall thing that you are doing with yourself. So you need to know why you are doing certain things. For instance, I know this John Maxwell, this I think, yeah, he teaches about leadership. He wrote a book that is called The Dream Test. Oh, it's called Put the Dream to the Test. Yes. So he put some 10 things there. I think the first thing he puts there, he says, you have to own your dream. So if it is my brother, my sister, my mother who told me to be a chartered accountant, I would have quit a long time by now. So it's very difficult to do something that you are being told by a person to do. You've got to have autonomy on your career. You've got to have autonomy on the goals you're pursuing. I think that is the basic thing that each and every person needs to remember. Why are you doing something? Is it you who's doing this dream, or someone sent you to university and said, do this for me? They couldn't do it themselves. They want you to do it. Then with that, you end up having people who complete their degrees, and then you find them coming back to study other things. Even when they have started at work, they're like, this was never mine. If you were to ask that person, how did you do it? They will tell you that there was some sort of influence to end up doing it. The key thing is to know why you are doing something. If you are doing something that is not really your own, when the struggles come, you're gonna say, this was my father's dream. It's not mine. I'm quitting. And you even run from the father from there, because you're not gonna be on the same terms. But if you put your own dream and told whoever is there supposed to support you when they can, you tell them your own dream, that this is what I'm pursuing, with or without the support, where sometimes people are able, but they want you to do their own thing. You're going to struggle in life if you're pursuing other people's dreams and ideas. You've got to do something of your own. So sometimes someone can confuse what I'm saying here when I'm saying other people's dreams and other people's ideas. You do work under people. I went to University of Johannesburg. That university is someone else's idea. But that idea was about helping us, other people who have their own ideas. And then I went there pursuing my own idea. I didn't go there because UJ wants me to be there. They don't need me. I needed them because I had something I wanted to do. And when I checked where I can do, I found it there. So everything else that you do in life, you identify where it is and then you go and get it. But you've got to know why you are doing it. Once you know why you are doing it, the rest of the 5 W's or 4 W's, what we call them, what, when, why, who, and how, those, they fall into place. You've just got to know what you are doing. I will just share a very simple thing on this principle, because I know we don't have a lot of time and we can't tell the whole story here. It's going to be very limited. I will share a very simple thing. In the Bible, there is a story about Nehemiah when he was in this other land. When I think they were captives there, or they were living there because they couldn't be at home in Jerusalem. And he was serving the king, and the king noticed that his face was not looking so good. He was sad, and asked him, "Why are you sad? What's going on?" And he said, he praised the king and said, if you would just hear me, I would be so blessed. And he asked me, what's going on? And he said, okay, the Jerusalem wall is down. The walls are broken. The gates are broken. My home is dead. I would like to go back. But before he even said that, the king, after hearing him, what problem is there at his home, he asked him, why? So what do you want? I want to clarify that point. What do you want, Nehemiah? And he said, I would like to go home and rebuild the wall and the city gates. And from there, the king said, okay, so what do you need? If you want to go, you want to go back and rebuild. And he mentioned, I would like to get a letter to pass this land and access to your lands to get the timber and the rebuilding material. He never paid a cent for rebuilding that wall. He was given access. When he got there, there were challenges. The neighboring communities were fighting him, saying he's disobeying the king, not knowing that he has permission. But how did he get that permission? Coming back to the resilience story that we are talking about, of achieving your own dream, doing your own things that you want to do, despite the challenges that you encounter. He knew what he wanted. By the time the king asked him, he didn't, try to move around. He said, I would like to go home, build the wall. Why am I going home? I want to rebuild it. How are you going to do that? I would like your help. Well, you have the timber, you have everything I need. Give me access. Give me the letters to go. If he had missed a simple answer, they've said, what do you want? And he started telling stories. He was going to fail that question, and the king was going to say, you don't know what you want. I can't help you. So it's all about that. I'm going to simplify it there. I know I have a lot of things about resilience, but I think this is the main thing. Everything else comes to top on this, but you need to know what you want in life.